Good evening. You're watching InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Ortiz. It's Thursday, the 28th of February of 2013, and here's what we have in store for you tonight.
Tonight, a bill has been introduced in Texas that would allow children to consent to receiving vaccines without any parental input. Then, documents reveal that U.S. Marshals are using spy drones. Sarah Palin says the feds are stockpiling bullets for civil unrest. Yeah, you think? All that and more on the InfoWars Nightly News.
Welcome back. Well, it seems the state of Texas is sponsoring legislation, a certain legislator in Texas, that would allow certain minors to receive immunization shots if they want to. According to an article posted today by our very own Melissa Melton on Infowars.com, the headline reads, "Breaking, Texas moves to forcibly inoculate children. A bill has been introduced in Texas that would allow children to consent to receiving vaccines without any parental input." The bill, SB 63, which is sponsored by Representative Jane Nelson, reach out to her, is called Relating to Consent to the Immunization of Certain Children, would allow for consent to immunization by a child if the child is pregnant or is the custodial parent of a child. So basically, what this proposed bill is saying is that we think you're mature enough to, get an immunization shot if, in fact, you're pregnant. So it's clearly amazing. I don't know what the intent of this is. I guess it's probably just to get the, big pharma more rich. But that's what they want, and that's what's going on in the state of Texas. Reach out to Jane Nelson, and it's important to note that according to various studies, parents who receive flu shots, mothers who receive flu shots, are 4,000% more likely to experience a fetal death. So there you go. Jane Nelson, SB 63. Now, in other stories, in Infowars.com, an article was posted today. The headline read, "Documents reveal U.S. Marshals using spy drones." Shocking. Documents obtained by the ACLU have revealed that the U.S. Marshal Service has experimented with using drones for domestic surveillance. The documents available on the ACLU website were released via a Freedom of Information Act request. That's an evil act. And basically, from the very few documents that they received, one of the documents said in 2004 and 2005, the U.S. Marshals Service tested 2 small drones in remote areas to help them track fugitives. And the Marshals Service abandoned the program after both drones crashed. So it really doesn't matter what federal agency fesses up to this. Basically, all federal agencies that are involved with the military are using this, but we're starting to see now that more and more agencies are fessing up to this due to Freedom of Information Act. So there you go. They're using domestic drones domestically here in the U.S., and that's just further proof of it. Now, in other news, speaking of civil liberties being violated, in an article posted today on Infowars.com by our very own Kurt Nimmo, the headline reads, "It's official. The Fourth Amendment is dead." And basically, the article says that earlier this week, in a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that citizens cannot challenge government wiretapping laws, in particular the unconstitutional Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978, and more recently the FISA Amendments Act of 2008. And later on in the article, it quotes Judge Andrew Napolitano, former Judge Andrew Napolitano, who's a libertarian. He says, quote, "FISA gives the government unchecked authority to snoop on all Americans who communicate with any foreign person in direct contravention of the Fourth Amendment." Basically, FISA basically says that if you're speaking to someone overseas and the government deems that person a threat or a person of interest, they can basically wiretap you and surveillance what you're doing. So that's also dangerous not only for you and me, but for journalists. If journalists are trying to speak to a source who's overseas and the government says, "Hey, what are you doing?" We won't be able to out criminality, because sources are going to be, we're not going to be able to speak to certain sources.
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.